All right, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, moderator for today's event, and I welcome you. We have an amazing webinar on tap here for you today. We have some great speakers, as always, and great content, but before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping items we need to go over. First of all, today's event is being recorded, so if you miss any or all of the event, you will have the opportunity to access it later on. Following today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And we are taking questions from the audience. So if at any time during today's presentation you have a question for any of our speakers, please don't wait, don't hesitate. Just use the question and answer tab on your web interface there and submit your question, and we'll try to get to as many as we can near the end of today's webinar. Also, we have 2 polling questions that we'll be pushing out during the webinar, so hopefully we can get everybody engaged with those. And then finally, at the end of today's webinar, we'll be doing a drawing for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards, so please stick around. Hopefully you'll be one of our 4 lucky winners. All right, with that, let's go ahead and kick off today's webinar, which is how to perfect planning with safe VSM and decentralized teams. Our speakers today are Helen Beal, who is Chief Ambassador at DevOps Institute and Ways of Working Coach. Alejandro Debenedet, who is a Safe 5 SPC and DevOps Institute Ambassador. And as always, Jeffrey Keyes, who is VP of Product at Plutora. Thank you all for joining me today. I do appreciate the time.
It is an absolute pleasure. Jeff also is a DevOps Institute ambassador. I'm just going to put that out there as well.
Okay, all right.
I know. I should put that in.
She's my boss. She's my boss.
All right, I'm going to take myself off camera, put myself on mute, let you guys get to it.
Okay, so let's get on with this. So our webinar flow today, we're going to be talking about arranging around value streams, talking about what planning looks like in Safe 5.1. We're talking about why planning is not the weakest link, look at some flow analytics and metrics, and then we'll talk about why value stream management is essential to perfect your planning. So let's start with Alejandro. Alejandro, you are a safe expert. Tell us what's changed in version 5.1 with respect to value streams and release trains, please.
Sure. Thank you, Helen. Yeah, I'm super excited with this new update. You know that SAFE in general speaks about operational and development value streams, right? But now they give more importance on operational value streams, the customer side of it. It goes mainstream. It has its own label right by the side of business agility. So you can click there and go directly to a paper that explains about it. It's not just part of development value stream. And also on the development value stream side, there is a link to how to make more value or more value focused the operational value stream. So again, looking at the gaps, trying to not lose time and effort. So really looking at waste. So that's super cool. And from the art perspective, well, there are also changes, particularly by the team formation. So now we have 4 different ways of organizing teams based on the principle number 10, organized around value. And there is one of the teams that is exactly based on value stream and value stream mapping. So yeah, it's an amazing. We've been waiting for this update. And of course, core values are still there. They did not change, which is great, because if everything changed, then where do we see how to follow up, what we have been doing? So core values, as you put them there, as you see it in the slide, are still there. So that's also good.
Amazing. So what do organizations need to do or need to change in order to take advantage of these goals that you set out?
Is that for me too? I would say that, I would say that is about flow, enterprise agility. You can see it also in this image. When we look at the train, and behind the train, these blue boxes or inclined boxes, that should represent the value stream. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at the train, normally in the previous, let's say, version 5, before the update, you will look at the train and a specific iterations where you would demo the value that you have, the incremental value that you have obtained in that iteration. Well, now that is not that fixed. Yes, you keep the cadence, but you look at the flow, you try to make it as minimum as possible, so the flow really happens. And it's also about people. Yeah, so continuous improvement and the continuous cycles, continuous delivery pipeline is there, much more explained. So I believe that those are the two key things. Yeah, focusing flow and focusing people.
Yeah, I remember something too when we were talking about this beforehand. You were talking about some of the leadership models and how that changes as well in this. Maybe you can talk about some of that.
Yeah, that's interesting, Jeff, because normally what happens when you are doing ad hoc agile, let's say, you think that, well, we still need to control some way, right? So you still use a managerial kind of leadership style.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually impedes the flow. Like, it's a blocker for flow, because there will be resentment. You will not really develop truth, this trust that you need in the teams. So you need to move out from, let's say, the management part to the coach side. And you know that agile teams have a PO that is a proxy for the stakeholders, but also the Scrum Master that is a slave leader, let's say, somehow, yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
is trying to develop this culture of self-organizing teams, decentralized decision making, and also trust. So this is very, very important to move away from management as per se.
Yeah, it's such a transformation from this top-down mentality where the focus is about making sure that each person is delivering widgets to, well, let's look at the output of the entire team, if you will, the value stream, to see what are the customer values, and then let's make that process the most efficient that we can. That coach positioning then is super important to help that journey. What kinds of things are you seeing as people, from an organizational stuff? I love this conversation, right? The organizational design, and we have these conversations all the time. But as you see people organize around this, what kind of things do you see in the journey? What are you seeing that's happening as they go from this top-down model to decentralizing and start to organize around value streams?
Yeah, so the question is more like, do they organize or not, basically?
That's part of it.
Yeah. So SAFe has I think an interesting way of putting it, right? So for many years, SAFe has tried to influence the organization chart and try to make it change and become agile until, let's say, version 4.6 or actually 5, where then we have these two operating systems. So we have like a net that you put on top of your organization. So you change what you can, you keep what is good out there, and then you start influencing that culture to change into the agile mentality. And in that journey, you will find people that will accept that. We always have champions there that they take the flag and move forward. And you have other ways of doing it, like with COPs, these clubs, I would say, that share the same expectations and values, so they will also be influencing. But it's about changing attitude, behavior, for them being able to change the organization culture.
Cool.
Nice. And in terms of the team topologies, in terms of doing what you talked about, becoming more value focused, what's the relationship between the team and the organization and the customer? How do we fit all of that together?
Yeah, that's a good question, Helen. So the SAFe perspective is twofold. So we have the teams pushing from down up, and we have the strategic teams and the portfolio, and let's say the top down budget owners, business owners, looking at when the value is achieved. So teams are instrumental here. As the slide says, is decentralizing decision making. You keep as little as possible of the core decisions at the top level, and you bring everything else down Of course, there has to be a lot of organization trust, and you have to make the changes for that to happen. And then all the other decisions are made at team level. So that's why it's really interesting to see that now we're not only looking at Scrum teams and Kanban teams, so based on the visualization method that they use and the way they push or pull stories to deliver value, but actually we're looking at 4 different ways of doing this depending on how we create these value streams or how we map the value streams. One little aspect that you might not see it in this slide unless you know the previous the version before this update, having these people at the end of the value stream, that's really a complete different thing than we didn't have people in the past. We had just a box there, right? So I think it's a very important change.
Nice.
Yeah, and just to throw in here, the commentary I see is with the customers I work with, the transition to this world really, while it might seem subtle, to me, it's massive. The implications here of going from a top-down, let me define everything out that I'm going to do, to a world where these teams are long-running, they're far more autonomous, we're going to help them be as efficient as they can, changes everything. Instead of being technology focused, we're going to be customer focused. Instead of being, let me solve a particular problem, I'm going to be problem oriented. I'm going to focus on solving valuable customer problems all the time and keep testing as I go. Instead of being, a resource intensive, let me lay out all the resources and what are they going to do, because let's be honest, in the traditional product management, iron triangle of scope, resources, and time, the only thing that ever switched around was scope. Well, instead of doing that, why don't I focus on the repeatability, the automation, and focusing on the flow of value versus spending all this time in delivery? And instead of being driven by what I think is going to be value, why don't I discover it at the end and make sure I'm doing it? Instead of doing internal KPIs, let me look at external KPIs that are customer, like retention, revenue, customer satisfaction. Everything changes with this mentality of being, frankly, more product driven and driven around value streams that I think is super valuable as we go down this journey. So while, from the outside, these might seem like subtle things, when I see this, I'm like, yes, finally, I'm happy to see SAFe really focusing on the decentralized teams and everything that it means for the industry. It does bring some problems, though, which I know we're going to talk to.
But first, let's have a poll. Let's have a poll.
Love it.
Okay, good.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Sorry, my microphone wasn't working there. Sorry. The first poll is out. Everybody can go ahead and make their choice. The question is, are you arranging around value streams? Yes, we are using SAFe. Yes, but not related to SAFe. No, we are struggling to agree a model across layers of the organization or other. Please comment. Yeah, and you can go ahead and if you do have that other, you can go ahead and use the chat tab and let us know what you're thinking. And we'll go ahead and leave this open for a minute or two. And if you guys want to, keep your conversation flowing while we keep it open, and then we'll close it, and you guys can make any comments, whatever you want to do at that point.
I was enjoying Alejandro's answer about talking about this combination of top-down and bottom-up approach. And I say bottom-up because I'm British. You Americans often say bottoms-up, which really makes me laugh because we say bottoms-up in the UK, but we say it when we like saying cheers.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that. I'm learning.
I did have a sort of follow-on question for Alejandro on that, though. So a lot of the time we talk about distributing authority, and we talk about flattening hierarchies. I wondered if there was anything in SAFe that talks about flattening hierarchies.
Yeah, well, it's plenty to be said, I think. But I'd like to draw a line between, the current or the more traditional way of working and also the agile way of working. And I had an example today. I was talking to an Epic owner in an organization, and she told me, yeah, but can I trust the teams?
You have to trust him, surely.
But think about it, right? She has a delivery in a further out horizon, 2024, 2025. Of course, we as human beings are really bad at forecasting that. So think about her uncertainty. She's budget owner. She has to deliver to the customer. There are a lot of expectations. And now she's being told, we're going agile. So you just tell me what you want to do. And there are these people somewhere there in the organization that will deliver that value. Okay. So how do you influence that? How do you influence that mindset? And you tell this person it's going to be all right. Just trust, as you said, Helen. Don't use your hierarchy. Don't be a tyrant out there. Don't whip people for delivering the value. Just go and trust them. Of course, we as coach, what we do is we try to give them as many tools, artifacts, as much knowledge as possible, try to influence the mindset, look at different cases. That's a good thing about SAFE, by the way, that is a body of knowledge based on experience throughout the years, right? So good and bad. And it's also, although it's called a framework, you should take it as a blueprint, I would say, like the basic fundamentals from where to learn. You apply principles, and principles are not rules. Principles allow you to be applied independent of where and when, and just solve the problem. So that's a good thing. So when I look at it in that way, I understand the feeling and I understand what will happen. On the other side, you're telling the agile teams, we empower you. You are the ones, you take this forward. So if you define these story points and these are the priorities and you talk them over with your PO, then nobody can change this. But that's not true. We're always here for business value, customer centricity, and things change. So we have to be flexible enough, and that is the core idea within Agile. Being Agile is not just fixing stuff. On the contrary, is be proactively seeing ways to delay decision making until we have as much information possible, and then we can forget about hierarchy and top down and whatever. I will not say bottom up anymore. So
you're allowed to say bottom up. You can say bottoms up if you like. It's just not good. Yes. Okay, so we've got some poll answers here. So the most popular answer to our poll, which was yes, but not related to SAFE. So that the question, I'll remind you, is are you arranging around value streams? So 48%, that's nearly half our audience today, are arranging around value streams but not using SAFE to do that. The next most popular answer was yes, we are using SAFE to do the value streams. So that's really interesting. That's nearly 3/4 of the people that are on this webinar are using value streams as an organizational concept. Now, you probably, I would suggest there is some bias that people would have come to this webinar because they saw things like value stream in the title and the abstract. Yeah. But that's so great, isn't it? That so many people are using this organizational construct. 17% said that they were struggling to agree a model. So hopefully they'll have a model to use after this webinar. And then 3% said other, but I couldn't actually see any comments in the chat about what those others were. Any comments from you guys on those polls?
Well, what's ironic to me is it was almost a year and a half ago, we did a poll, a broader survey across, I think we had about 270 different organizations saying, hey, are you organizing doing value streams? Are you organizing around value streams? And are you doing value stream management? And I think the answer was about, I'm sure I'm getting these numbers wrong, but it was like in the 70-ish%, like, oh yeah, we're doing value stream management. We're organizing around value streams. Then there's a question like, well, what is it? And nobody knew. So I wonder if there's still some confusion around what even that means. But I'm confident that people are interested in what it provides. It's a really hot topic, but that's my commentary.
Later on, we can do another webinar. from my perspective, Helen, just 1 second about the poll. I think the answer are okay, in the sense, safe means scaling agile, right? So you have to start somewhere, and you don't need to scale until at some point. Maybe you don't even have an organization to scale from. So you can use safe from an essential perspective, and this is basically lean, agile, and other type of principles. Even you can be just start with a Scrum team. Yeah. So that's the thing, and I think it's the answers are quite interesting. They are layering up as you would expect with scaling up safe.
Yep.
Nice insights. Thanks, guys. So let's talk about these journeys that people are on. So you just gave us a kind of different things, different frameworks there, Alejandro, like lean and agile and Scrum, and all these different things that people are adopting in order to improve organizational performance. They all have something in common, right? That's what we're ultimately trying to do, is make sure that we can survive through digital transformation, and our company can continue to operate, hopefully thrive, and we can all continue to pay our mortgages. This is what we're in it for, right? Keeping the wheels of capitalism moving. But the reality is that in the organization, there are different teams at different stages, different capabilities. So what this slide is saying is we've got our 3 teams, and we've got Team A, who were doing waterfall a long time ago, and then they started experimenting with Agile and Scrum, and then they adopted Safe, and now they've moved into DevOps ways of working. So they're probably our most advanced team on that particular slide. But there's a lot of trouble with transition, right? These journeys, getting from one stage to another, all being at different paces. So what happens when different teams are doing different things? And Jeff, do you want to start us up on that one, and then we'll pass to Alejandro?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me answer another question, just because it's reality. It's okay and expected that different teams are going to go at different accelerations, if you will, down this transformation process. It's okay. In fact, it's expected. You're going to have different levels of investment, different levels of risk allowance, different leadership in the team, different technologies, and all of these things combine to impact the acceleration, if you will, of the journey towards a more agile and DevOps way of working. And Safe, from my perspective, is a fantastic way to get started, and a fantastic way to sort of get the machine operating from a pure waterfall model. The problem that you run into now is, how do you manage across this? I mean, there's so many different issues that come. The first being, when we were back in this top-down approach, and leadership says do X, and then all the teams go out and then lay out these big projects. Awesome. And now what we've done is we've taken these big teams that are fairly monolithic, broken them down into lots more teams, and said, okay, everybody, run yourselves. You're good. Go make it happen. And now you've got really smart people, the right thing to do. And now they're doing crazy fast stuff, but good luck now trying to figure out what's going on. And when you go to your, and you go back, and the classic executive question is like, well, when is initiative X going to be done? We've got to get a new whatever out into the market. How do you actually know? And so the problem on this journey, what does it actually mean is having some ability to predict, have some kind of track record of what's going on, coordinate across teams. You still got dependencies. And now, granted, if every team is doing Safe, you have a model for dealing with that. But if they're not, if you've got a team doing Kanban, you've got to figure out how you're going to manage those dependencies. You need some way to really span these, so that you can end up, and have some kind of confidence of when you're going to end up with what, and understand the dependencies, and end up with the right quality, delivering ultimately value to that customer. That's the problem that we face.
Yeah, and I think that's where this great metaphor comes in, the train, right? The agile release train. Because if you think of a train going into a station, or going to a station, going somewhere, you may have different types of wagons, but they are all in some way keeping one thing. And this one thing is a cadence. Yeah, they're all running together at the same speed. So I actually don't see any, as you said, anything intrinsically bad about being different teams. if you know why you become that team. That's part of self-organizing, right? So if it's somehow dictated in the organization, yeah, we're going to do safe and we all have to be Scrum teams, then something is wrong. Because if you have an unprecedented amount of unexpected or work or escalations or dependencies, or you work with suppliers outside, maybe being a Scrum team is not good, because you need to be more a Kanban team where you can pull stuff when you have capacity. Yeah. So, but you are actually still one wagon of that train if you are all working together and you somehow visualize. SAFe has an artifact called the program board that comes out of the program increment planning event, the pipe between us. And there you can see what each wagon or each team is doing or plans to do, how it connects, what dependency it has between each other, so how they link to other wagons and with external parties. Yeah. Also, you could see what the milestones are. So which stations are we getting at before we end the journey? Yeah. So this kind of alignment is what we have to look into. Then, well, if we could have all the different teams, same teams, that's fine. But if not, this is a reality check, and we have to take the best out of it. And of course, with support of more visualization and data gathering, we will get better to that end of the journey, right, and deliver the value.
Exactly.
So I want to give you a question from the audience, which is related to what we're talking about right now. So Curtis has gone like deep into the weeds with us. He wants to know, how do teams limit replicated stories for the same feature with input from multiple pods? So how do we avoid duplication, basically? Alejandro, do you have some thoughts on that one?
I thought we were going to ask the audience. They asked the question. We can ask them. So replicating stories for the same feature. Okay, so that is something that you would not expect in a way. Yeah. So when you decompose Epic into features is one thing, and then you have features and you start decomposing into stories. Yeah? At some point, you have the teams gather together and they decide which stories they are going to look into for this specific iteration. So if you have story that you can say, this is story A, and this is also story A, there is something wrong in the definition of that story. Yeah, because then it's a bigger story that has been split in two. But for example, maybe the acceptance criteria is different. Yeah, and we haven't looked into that. So this is something that should not normally happen from a SAFe perspective. Yeah, and also, yeah, you have basically who's controlling that is the team itself, looking at the definition of that story. Remember that story has a specific formula, and it's based on the on the customer expectation, and not us from a technical perspective. Yeah.
Wonderful. So it just shouldn't happen, quite simply. So that last slide was really important, showing us how different teams start at different times and go at different paces and try different frameworks, all with this ultimate goal. But we were really talking about the technology teams there. We were talking about, if you look at this slide, which is from a talk that John Smart, then at Barclays, now at Deloitte, did at the DevOps Enterprise Summit, I think as far back as 2018, maybe 19, can't quite remember. But it was from a presentation called The PMO is Dead, Long Live the PMO. I talk about it all the time. It's been a little while. I used to talk about it all the time, and it feels like it's a couple of months since I last saw it. But when in that last slide, we were really talking about that bit in the middle where we're saying we are so freaking agile, yay, and kind of forgetting about what is essentially the rest of the value stream. So we have this horrible situation in our industry where we talk about ourselves and then we talk about the business. And I hate doing quotes, but I also hate the business. Like there's this kind of like foreign body near us when we're kind of part of the same organization. So Jeff, tell us a bit about why the business doesn't tend to get involved, and then Alejandro can help us understand how to get them more involved.
Well, I too laugh at that because I feel like the rise of, I know SAFe calls it the product owner. I've almost always outside of Microsoft have worked as a product manager, and the way that product management is seen outside of large enterprise is dramatically different. and how product management is seen inside of IT. It's like two different worlds. And to think that there's the business and IT is back to that thinking of there's a top-down approach and they're going to tell IT what to do. It's like, no. What you really want are really strong product management. They are the business. They are the ones that are going to be super close to the customer. They're going to help with, might have product owners. They might dual role being product owners as well. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, they're the business. And their ultimate goal is value delivery to the customers. What's fascinating about this is that as we go down this SAFe journey or any journey of Agile, and when we organize around value streams, we have to think of the value stream as being from idea all the way to getting it, delivering value and customer realized value. Well, if the beginning of that is, I had an idea and I had an idea on the backlog, you're missing the point. You got to go all the way back up that if your team is durable and long funded, now product management is driving that vision all the way from this, this ever continuous exploration process, which again, SAFe accounts for. But don't think of it as like, okay, I'm going to do this process of grooming my backlog and getting things in. If you came here from a SAFe perspective, for example, thinking I'm going to learn this little trick about how to groom my backlog better, you're missing the point. The point is if you have value stream oriented thinking, the idea triaging, the customer experiences, the validation, all of that is happening before you're going through the process of development, but it's happening much, much closer to the development process, not months, not quarterly, not annually. It's continuous, and it's an exploration process of experimentation and validation and incorporating that entirely into the Agile side. And then, of course, on the other end of including that into the delivery so that you can, once the idea is created, that you're getting it into customers' hand and realizing the value as quickly as possible. How fast can that go? How automated? How many deployments does it take? All these things come into play. Super important. So I know I expand on your question, Helen, of how does the business not get involved? But as soon as that mindset clicks, it's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not waiting for someone to tell me what to do. We are driving this. We're doing it. It's us, the team. You've now hit the point. That's how you align the business with IT, because IT becomes the business.
Alejandro, what would you like to add?
I love it. What can I say? Right on the point, Jeff. Yet I would say that in this for this answer, SAFe gets a little bit political. Yeah, can I use that word?
Yeah, you can.
Into politics. So when you have the program increment, the PI planning event, the first opportunity you give is to the business to present the vision, right? So that is SAFe. Allows that because it's trying to align with the business, and the way to do that is a little bit to compromise. Yeah, definitely. Could the PM do that? Of course. Yeah, the PM influences that. An epic owner that is looking at all these way into multiple years and multiple PIs it has a very clear idea where we're going on that. But yet you see this in the agenda, and I understand where it comes from. And don't forget, there is a SAFe version for government too. Yep. It's not a version, but it is prescriptive for government. So they take that stand, and I think that's good. That allows it to go mainstream, and that allows also for small and medium businesses to benefit from this. And maybe that it's also subsidizing all the rest of the knowledge that is available for free in the websites. I don't know, but that is my call, by the way. It's not scripted. But I think it's important to realize that it's also, you will find that also in SAFe.
Another poll. Charlene, take it away.
Yeah, so we do have the second poll available to you to go ahead and make your choice. The question is, if you are using an Agile at scale technique, what is the biggest problem you are having at the moment? You can choose from people are still using spreadsheets, leadership support is lacking, we have too many dependencies, we are being too rigid in our implementation or other. You can go ahead and put your comments in the chat for that one. And as before, I will leave the polling question open for a minute or two and let everybody go ahead and make your choices. And real quick, before I let you guys get back to your conversation, I just want to quickly remind the audience that if you do have a question, go ahead and use your Q&A tab and submit your question, and we will try to get to as many as we can. Hopefully we'll have a few minutes near the end of today's webinar to go over those. So I'm going to, as I said, just leave the polling question open, but you guys can go ahead and continue on with your conversation. And after about a minute or so, I'll close the poll out.
Thanks, Charlene. So I have a question for you. Jeff, maybe, although both of you might have an opinion. What is the difference between a product manager and a product owner?
Alejandro, I'll let you take that one first, and I'll augment on it.
I was going to close the camera. No, so I think that the simple answer to that is that from the safe perspective, the PO is closer to the team, is looking inside the team, so it's a proxy for the stakeholder, and because he's or she is always available, it's easier to get answers and to understand better the story. It has also some responsibilities, like for example, in every iteration review planning, he or she is the one reading the stories and getting the agreement of the team. So it's more, let's say, an internal or inside job with the team for the PO perspective. From the product management, is more focusing at the art level, at the train level. Yeah. So, for example, the PO sync is something that is the PM would be responsible for. By the way, it could be that for more complex environments, you don't have a PM, but you have a body, a group of PMs looking into the same train. Yeah, so that gives other responsibilities. And it's a little bit, from a team perspective, it seemed like an escalation opportunity, right? So it's not that close to the team. And then you have, of course, the next levels, solution, epic owners, etc.
Yeah, my response to that is perfectly spot on. And if you're doing safe, but yet there's so many definitions of how this works. When I was at Microsoft, the role was called program management, and in essence, it's a mini feature owner, and you play the role of driving the features internally as well as with the customers. In classic small companies, a product manager is a area of functionality and value owner, and their responsibility is ultimately that, to deliver customer value. And I like the terminology of, it's the ultimate responsibility with no authority, meaning nobody reports to you. Dev doesn't report to you. Test doesn't report to you. User experience doesn't report to you. But yet, if any of those things are wrong, it's your fault. So you better figure it out and make sure you deliver the right things. I think there is a transition happening right now where there is, my prediction, just Jeff Kai's, I think there's the rise of a product manager where, like I said before, IT will see product management grow from where it has, what the small cloud native companies treat product managers. Because, as a product manager at Plutora, it's a very different role than if I was a product manager at, Bank of America, for example. I get to enjoy my association for... What's that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Are we ready to look at the poll? Do you want to finish off what you were saying? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. My association with quote unquote the business is I'm pitching my leadership on ideas that I want to do, and I'm pitching for investment for things that I think will have a return and increase customer value and improve customer adoption, expansion, improve revenue, and improve customer satisfaction. That's my job.
So you're running with innovation then. You are influencing for innovation. I love that. Sorry, Helen.
Right, let's look at our poll, guys. I'm going to keep us on track today. So yes, we'll be very happy. So reminder, the question we asked was, if you are using an agile at scale technique, what is the biggest problem you are having at the moment? And the most popular answer with 44%, we have too many dependencies.
Ta-da!
As anticipated. The next answer was other, and actually we've got lots of chatter going on, so thanks audience for making this extra fun for us. Paul says it's a toss-up between dependencies and rigid implementation. Curtis says it's too many initiatives. The business has asked for too many features, and he's put a great little emoticon in there as well, or emoji. Sergey says still using spreadsheets and lack of clear direction with Agile. Roses, mine's a toss-up with spreadsheets versus cross-team dependencies. And Sergey's also commented that he sees a lot of organizations that try to scale Agile when they aren't very good at Agile at a small scale. So when they scale, their existing issues are amplified. Alejandro?
No, that's true. That's right on the spot. Yeah. So you cannot scale if you don't have a good foundation. And probably that may not even be about the artifacts that you use or the rituals. It's just basic human nature that you have to work with first.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So any other comments on the poll? Let me just go back to see anything else on that. So yeah, only 9% had people still using spreadsheets. So that's some good news. Leadership support is lacking 16%, too rigid 13%. So let's talk about using SAFe and VSM together to perfect our planning. Jeff, what are we seeing here?
Well, see prior conversation about different teams on different schedules and different parts of their journey towards scaled agile and so forth. Different teams, in fact, may not even be using in a single organization the SAFe framework, and that's all okay. Whatever makes sense for each team, that's what needs to be enabled. The key here is finding a way to, one, manage across them, two, have visibility and transparency so that you can coordinate. And like you were saying, Alejandro, where these things will converge is there's various trains going to the station. So, figure out which one you're getting on, or maybe even on an independent one. Whatever it is, that's okay. We need a way to view this so that we're organizing for value delivery. And when we start to look at organizing towards value delivery, a lot of things change, because as we take on more of this planning idea where we're going to think of things, be truly autonomous, we have to think of this in terms of these different value streams as they go. What it ultimately means is, one, we've got to continue down this journey towards DevOps. Decomposing from an architectural and a functional perspective is the key. Break these dependencies. You're never, ever going to get so good at managing them that the problems go away. Recognize that you've got a way to have these value streams go forward independently. And that's okay too. That's the ultimate goal. Every value stream is completely independent and can be delivered. Side story there. We're out visiting Amazon, and I remember being blown away as they described a single purchase page on Amazon.com being composed of nearly 100 different teams, from the catalog to the purchase, transact, promotions fitting in, the actual user experience, the historical. Massive, and they're all independent, authentication and everything. Now, granted, there's problems. There's always going to be some level of dependencies, but for the most part, they release on demand as often as they want. And that's what it means to go on this journey from SAFe to DevOps as we go forward.
So tell us more about this then. Tell us about flow metrics and how they help us manage the scale problems when we're trying to adopt these ways of working.
Yeah, and these ways of working, yes, there's a lot here. I went down the path of, if you don't really know what you're building or why, any path can get you there. Scaled agile, Kanban, does it really matter? Stay waterfall. If the whole point is we just have to show operational efficiencies, then press more keystrokes. Does it really matter? If you're interested in delivering value faster, then all of a sudden some things come into light. Well, what is value? What is value? You could look at, and this is a piece from Gartner that I love. Peter Hyde did a fantastic job sort of outlining this from 3 different levels. If I'm looking at it from a business value perspective, why don't I look at things, when I measure success of a product delivery, why don't I start looking at it from a perspective of, well, how much does it cost me to get there? Did it improve revenue? What was the quality? Did it improve my customer sat or net promoter score? Other things that we look at, adoption. How much more data was pushed through? How many more users added on? What was the customer retention impact? And these are actual value. What was the value the customer realized? That's awesome. Now there's a product perspective that we want to look at, which is instead of worrying about a resource efficiency, like did individual guy press enough keystrokes in a particular day? Did he do enough user stories? Did he close enough bugs? Oh my gosh, can we break that mentality and focus more on flow of customer value? If there's a feature that's going to produce value, how long did it take from when I thought of it to get into the customer's hand? That's called lead time. Cycle time. What's the average amount of time it takes to work on something when we have an idea to get it there? Well, and when we look at that, and we look at it from all these different things flowing through the system, that ends up with a set of throughput. That's massively important. One of the fundamental aspects of Agile is to stop starting and start finishing. I love. Another person will meet up with Charlie. I love that mentality. We need to limit our work in progress. So what is our work in progress? If we're truly trying to limit it, can you tell me how many things we have going on at the same time? Because proven, we know that if you're working on too many different things at the same time, you're going to have other problems. The efficiency, comparing the amount of time we actually do work versus the time that things are just sitting, whether wait time or handoffs or otherwise. And then really looking at a work profile. What's the distribution of things from I'm building a feature versus I'm building resolving technical debt, or I'm reducing risk in my pipeline. Really interesting as you look at these things as a product guy, and I look at certain features where it's like, okay, feature. We built a whole bunch of stuff. We're not doing enough technical debt and re-architecting. I know there's going to be a problem. I can look forward and say, I know that percentage isn't right. I better fix things. So these flow metrics, value stream flow metrics, and value stream delivery metrics, and the technical metrics that are inside the code themselves are critical and imperative as we look forward on the kind of work we're doing to manage the work that's going on. More so than just looking at dependencies or how many story points that we did and did we blow up production.
So I see so many similarities between SAFe and DevOps, right? You know this, I've done lots of analysis with this with you, and the kind of core difference that I feel between SAFe and DevOps is that SAFe helps us manage dependencies in large complex organizations, whereas DevOps always seeks to break those dependencies. Other than that, there's so much crossover. But one of the big limitations, I think, of both environments with SAFe and with DevOps is that they tell us to collect all these metrics, but they don't actually give us the ability to do it or the platform to collect this data. They want us to have data-driven conversations, but it isn't there. So this is like where this all starts to collide, isn't it? It's like
it is.
Yeah. So what do we do? Let's go to the next slide, actually, which is going to take us there, I think. So let's hear from Tony. Tell us about Tony, Jeff.
Oh, Tony's awesome. We have a case study from Health First up on our site. This is the commercial part of the story, but I want to tell you something. There's importance here. Tony was struggling about how to see what's going on as they do their program increments and see where things are going. He was struggling to actually use actual data, to make decisions. How late are stories coming in? What's the impact to pipelines? How long does it take to get a story approved? What happens when they delay a release train to allow some late stories in? What's the impact to quality? Oh my gosh. He was struggling to get that and needed some data and insights, and brought in basically Plutora to aggregate and correlate that data together so we can get those insights. The governance and oversight that they were able to maintain and give better reasoning why, for example, they shut some pipelines down. Like, I get that you want to go now, but these stories are coming in late. I'm going to push you to the next train because here's the data that shows it's going to blow up production. We're increasing our risk by 45%. It's not worth it. That's power. Yeah, I guess we're running out of time. So when you think about value stream management, there's 4 core problems that it looks to solve and address. I'm just going to touch on these briefly and then tell you a couple things. But basically, without value stream management, you don't have visibility in the pipelines. You can't see what's happening from idea to production. You don't have a way to actually stitch together all the stuff that's happening between the PMO, the planning, and into delivery. Meaning, where does a package sit in the pipeline? What's the quality level at it? When is it actually going to get to production? What environment does it sit on? What date is it expected to deploy? You might see some release trains, but you can't really trace it all the way through. You can't see the dependencies across them. Is the next problem, where you're correlating these different pipelines together and saying, okay, I can't see what's happening in one pipeline. I can't see what's happening across the portfolio. Worse, the third problem is what we were talking about before. Wait a minute. How do I manage and optimize disparate pipelines? People, some that are doing Save, some that are doing Kanban, some that are still waterfall. We need some way to manage across all these pipelines. And, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. If you can't manage it, you have no method for continuous improvement. You might have gone on the most fantastic journey towards DevOps, but yet if you can't show metrics of delivery, you can't prove it. And then what's your story? Let's hit the next slide. As you look at the various methodologies that are going on, you need truly a way to be able to bring these things together and bring the data in and from a multidimensional point of view, regardless of whatever tools or techniques that are being used, and centralize and standardize so that you can see each of these pipelines wherever they are in their journey, to understand the release trains that are there. So you have one view. Here's all my release trains. It's great. Here's every team that's getting in there, and still have the ability to provide governance. One more slide. So what Plutora does, we're a value stream management platform. We're a cloud-based solution that basically integrates and correlates data across the tool chain. We're not a planning tool. We're not a CI tool. We're not a package deploy, release automation, or service management. What we do is we pull all that data into a common data model, normalizing it and giving you a single view into what's there. Now, we do provide a bunch of management orchestration capabilities for the release management and setting up the release trains and showing you, here's my calendar. I'm going to block out certain periods of time and not allow anybody to release during Christmas, please, or other things like that. But it's self-service. If a team wants to go create an instance of a release, we'll include all the governance that needs to be there. We have an environment management component so that you can check out and schedule environments. Or if they're completely automated, you can have traceability and visibility into the configurations of what's there. You can correlate the various builds and artifacts that are going from environment to environment on through. We bring in all the quality data so you can correlate that against it as well. And then ultimately, you have the ability to deploy and schedule and plan and practice your deployments on a go live weekend. If you're more automated, great. You don't need that. We're going to help you through this journey of really automating and moving towards DevOps, moving to a breaking the dependency between the components. Now, where the real value comes is in the decision-making analytics, giving you full analytics of everything that's going on. Those value stream flow metrics we talked about, that's critical. How do you know if you're improving? How do you actually demonstrate to management why you're making these investments, spending millions, training, certification, tooling? Well, let me show you why. Here's the metrics. And that's what we do.
Charlene, you must be so proud of us. We've left you with more than 30 seconds. Where is she?
I honestly am speechless at this moment. I'm so not used to actually having extra time here. I'm going to put myself on camera just to let you know that, just to show you how shocked I am at this. But no, guys, if you have a question for Helen or Jeff or Alejandro, go ahead and use your question and answer tab to go ahead and put it in. We do have time for maybe 2 or 3 questions. And I think you guys actually already addressed Curtis's question, which is how do teams replicate stories? same features. So, we do have a lot of really great comments from folks. Sergey did say, I see a lot of organizations that try to scale Agile when they aren't very good at Agile at a small scale. Mm-hmm. So when they scale, their existing issues are amplified. Maybe you guys want to kind of talk a little bit about that. Give us your thoughts on that.
I think we looked at it really briefly earlier, and the one question that I wanted to ask as a follow-up question for the crew was, what are those typical problems that people haven't resolved before they try to scale? What are the common issues that we see?
Well, I'm going to throw one in just because I gotta. Everybody forgets about environments, and it is a disaster. If you think today about your environment solutions, what are you doing for your test environments, your non-prod? How are you handling that? If you're all Kubernetes and immutable environments and it's all good to go, no problem. Ignore everything I'm saying. If you're not, who tracks what's there? Who tracks what configurations in there? Who tracks who's using them? Who tracks if there's a load test on one or misconfiguration components that could completely invalidate some of the user acceptings or integration testing? Talk about the Achilles heel of this whole transformation. That's a common problem.
We've got a great question just coming from Gautam, which I'm going to pick up myself and then follow up with. The question is there a maturity model for VSM? So the first thing I'm going to say is let's not talk about maturity models. Let's refer to one of our titles. It's page 9, and it explains why we talk about capability, not maturity. And then my answer to this is there's going to be some big news on March the 3rd. So keep your eyes out, because questions like that will have a place to live and a place to be answered. So keep your eye on devops.com on March 3rd to find out what's happening in that space. Jeff, did you want to add anything? We've got another question from Curtis that we could go to if you'd prefer.
Looking, hang on. Oh, there's as a product manager, how much should be slotted for technical debt? 20%, 30%? That's a great question. It depends. If you're all, do you have performance problems? Do you have security problems? Or you have system crashing? What is your current rate of failure in your deployments? What does it look like as you go to customers and customer adoption? What is your ability to track and input feedback from customers in the process? So remember, it's not just the gold standard for what you do your breakdown for features coming in your pipeline fit into 4 buckets. You got technical debt, sure, and you have risk. Technical debt being focused on the re-architecting, and risk being how do I do things more automated, include more testing, more quality checks. Those are typically technology focused, because that's what they're imagine your chief technology officer going to be feeding that into you as a product guy, and that's those product oriented features. Now you've got to compete that versus defects and your features, because you might have a whole lot of bugs that just need to get fixed. That breakdown, you're going to have to, the whole point is first look at what you're currently doing and then decide, wow, where are my problems? Because depending upon the problem depends on, if I'm having performance problems, up your tech debt. If I'm having frequent in production crashes, up your defect and tech debt. I mean, yes, those are the things to think about.
Yeah,
Helen, I've been listening intentfully and silent for some time, so I want to say something now. Jeff is spot on with what he said, but now I put my safe cap on and I say, this is not for the product manager to decide. This is something for the team to work on. Yeah, so that sounds like to be continued, right? But that's the feeling. That's what you have to have in mind. So the team is more than the sum of its individuals, right? The team has a superpower by becoming a team and looking in things like the one that's been asked.
Lovely. Thanks, Alejandro. I think we're going to have to wrap it up there. Paul, we have a question from you that we haven't got to. We will follow up with you afterwards. Over to Charlene.
All right. Thanks, Helen. Yeah, lots of really, really great questions. So thank you to everybody who did submit questions. And just a quick reminder, today's event has been recorded. So if you missed any or all of it, you will have the opportunity to access it later on. Following today's webinar, we are going to be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And the webinar is also going to be living on the devops.com website. So you can go look for it there. Just go to devops.com/webinars, look in the on-demand section, and it should be right there waiting for you. Okay, real quick, we're just going to zip right through these Amazon gift card drawings. Our winners today are Jorge G. Congratulations, Jorge. Karen B. Congratulations, Karen. Brendan B. Congratulations, Brendan. And Tara A. Congratulations, Tara. Guys, check your inbox for information on your Amazon gift card. If you don't see something there in your inbox, please check your spam folder. Helen, Alejandro, Jeff, thank you all again. So what a great presentation. As always, you guys have such great conversations. I always enjoy hearing it. So thank you. Thank you, all three of you.
Thank you.
Great stuff.
All right. Also want to thank the audience for joining me today. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, and I'm signing off. Have a great day, everybody, and please stay safe.